Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. Today we'll delve into a case where the perpetrator's methods were incredibly sophisticated. On April 11, 2006, on the 15th floor of the Lincoln apartment complex in Shiji District, New Taipei City, Taiwan, a resident on the top floor smelled a strong gas odor coming from a neighboring apartment. After knocking on the door with no response, the concerned resident immediately called the police, fearing a gas leak or burst pipe. When police and firefighters arrived and forced entry, a horrifying scene greeted them. The homeowner, Ms. Cai Tingyou, and her two daughters were found neatly dressed, lying motionless on the bed, without any signs of life. Police discovered that all doors and windows were sealed shut, with the main door locked from the inside. All window cracks were stuffed with fabric. On the gas stove in the kitchen, a kettle had boiled dry. From this, police initially concluded that the deaths were caused by gas poisoning after water in the kettle boiled over, extinguishing the flame and causing a gas leak. Given the scene, this appeared to be a family tragedy. It seemed that the homeowner, Cai Tingyou, might have been responsible. Investigation revealed that Cai Tingyou had separated from her husband, Zhang Heling, due to his infidelity and failure to provide for the family. She relied on selling essential oils, direct marketing, and odd jobs to support herself and her two daughters. Thus, police speculated that emotional turmoil and financial difficulties may have driven Cai Tingyou to desperation. However, after investigation and interviews, neighbors didn't believe she would do this to her children. Moreover, her parents disagreed with the police's hypothesis. They stated that their daughter was a strong person who wouldn't give up due to temporary difficulties and certainly wouldn't take her children with her. Furthermore, they had spoken to Cai Tingyou on the phone the night before the incident, and she showed no unusual signs. Therefore, at the request of Cai Tingyou's parents, the police conducted autopsies on all three victims. The forensic autopsy report was quickly released. As her parents had predicted, the case took a completely different turn from initial speculation. According to the autopsy report, all three victims showed signs of having their mouths and noses covered. If the mother had done this herself, the marks on the daughters might be explicable. But the fact that Cai Tingyou herself had these marks was puzzling. How could she have done this to herself? It clearly didn't make sense. Another crucial clue was that the carbon monoxide levels in all three victims' bodies were much lower than lethal doses. Moreover, traces of ethyl ether were found in their systems. Ethyl ether, also known as anesthetic ether, can cause unconsciousness. In daily life, this substance is rarely encountered and difficult for ordinary people to access. These clues indicated that this was not an act by Cai Tingyou herself, but actually a homicide. Therefore, the police returned to the scene for further investigation. However, this investigation only made the case more mysterious. At the scene, police found no suicide note or any items containing ethyl ether. They collected every bottle of essential oil in the house for testing, but no traces of ethyl ether were found. This meant that not only were there no traces of the perpetrator, but the murder weapon had also been removed. This case resembled a locked room murder mystery from detective novels. Although they knew the victims hadn't committed suicide, the police couldn't provide evidence of murder. The case reached a dead end, and the police had to set it aside in a pile of unsolved cases for a whole year. One day, prosecutor Lin Hong Song received a new assignment. Faced with over 300 unresolved case files, he felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to start. Unexpectedly, he caught a whiff of jasmine fragrance. Following the scent, he discovered a file under the cabinet. As if by fate, this file was the Cai Tingyou family massacre case. The scent came from a bottle of essential oil preserved as evidence. The prosecutor immediately read through the file and quickly noticed several suspicious points. But why had this case file been sealed? This puzzled him. Therefore, Lin Hong Song immediately decided to reopen the investigation as a homicide case. Typically, a murder case has three main motives: love, hate, or money. From the on-site investigation, Cai Tingyou's home showed no signs of being ransacked, and nothing was missing, so the financial motive could be ruled out. The victim had simple social relationships, no enemies at work, and good relationships with neighbors and relatives, so the revenge motive could also be eliminated. Regarding relationships, the only person with conflicts with the victim was Zhang Heling, her husband. In fact, during the initial investigation, Zhang Heling had been questioned by the police. But at that time, the police simply thought, how could a father be so cruel as to kill his own children? Finally, in the absence of any other evidence, they did not investigate further. Zhang Heling had left Taiwan for mainland China not long after the incident occurred. Time was of the essence. Lin Hongsong first requested insurance information for Cai Tingyou and her 2 daughters. The results showed that the sole beneficiary was Zhang Heling, and just a week after his wife and children's deaths, he had filed an insurance claim. Normally, when losing 3 loved ones in one night, most people would be immersed in grief and busy with funeral arrangements. How could one have the mindset to rush to claim insurance? This behavior of Zhang Heling was truly suspicious. Additionally, the testimony of the victim's parents further led the prosecutor to suspect that this husband had a clear motive for the crime. Cai Tingyou's parents stated that their son-in-law was unfaithful, often didn't come home at night, and didn't provide money for their daughter. He even beat his wife. The police had also recorded Zhang Heling's history of domestic violence. Once, during an argument, he directly destroyed his wife's motorcycle. From any angle, Zhang Heling had motives for the crime. However, although Zhang Heling was the main suspect, he was now in mainland China. Without evidence, they couldn't charge him. Regarding the investigation of this case, the police at the Shiji District Police Station were very passive. They had thought a lot, but still couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation for this strange murder case. Therefore, they could only try to persuade prosecutor Lin Hongsong not to waste any more time on this case. Several months passed, but the case made no progress. Feeling anxious, prosecutor Lin Hongsong sought help from Li Yangji, the deputy director of the Criminal Investigation Bureau. The Criminal Investigation Bureau in Taiwan is mainly responsible for major and important cases. With the spirit of responsibility and mission of a police officer, Li Yangji agreed to Lin Hongsong's request. Subsequently, they formed a special task force. The first thing they needed to do was return to the crime scene to see if they could find any overlooked clues. Li Yangji first recreated the situation when entering the crime scene. And indeed, they discovered an important clue. They found that although all doors and windows in the house were closed and the main door was locked, only the balcony door was unlocked. Cai Tingyou's apartment was on the floor just below the building's top floor. If someone intended to break in, they could easily climb down from the top floor into the apartment. Zhang Heling had previously worked installing outdoor air conditioners, so this operation would have been easy for him. Moreover, the iron clothes drying rack outside the balcony was installed by him. After decoding this mystery, the next step was to find valid evidence. Unfortunately, the task force could hardly find any usable evidence. The initial police officers had not collected hair samples from the bed in time, nor had they checked locations that might have retained skin cells from the suspect, such as under the victim's fingernails. Although there was an interrogation record of Zhang Heling at that time, he only answered, "I don't know," to most questions, so it was of no help to the case. Therefore, the task force decided to re-interview the neighbor who had called the police. This kind woman, although somewhat dissatisfied with the passive work attitude of the police initially, was willing to share all the information she knew when she saw how active the task force was. She said she had a very good relationship with Cai Tingyou, occasionally helping her look after her 2 daughters. Later, Zhang Heling's affair became so public that everyone knew about it. The day before the incident, she had seen a man wearing a raincoat and helmet going up the stairs. She found this person very suspicious, so she asked the building manager to keep the surveillance video footage of this image and provide it to the police. Receiving this unexpected information, the members of the task force were extremely excited. This could be a crucial breakthrough. It seemed that the case finally had hope of being solved. The task force members immediately went to look for this important video, but strangely, they couldn't find it. Undeterred, they went to the Shiji District Police Station and invited the police officers who had previously handled the case to come back and help with the search. Finally, they found this hard drive in a deep drawer. However, to everyone's disappointment, due to poor storage, the hard drive had been damaged by moisture and the images could not be viewed. Li Yangji searched all major and minor hard drive manufacturers, spending tens of thousands of new Taiwan dollars, but still couldn't recover the data. Unfortunately, this valuable clue was lost. Frustrated and angry, they thought long and hard and decided to shift their investigation focus to Zhang Heling's lover. If this case occurred due to infidelity, then theoretically, this lover might know something. Immediately, prosecutor Lin Hongsong used the reason that call records showed the suspect had met his lover the day before the incident. With this somewhat forced reason, he applied to the court for permission to wiretap Su Yuzhen, Zhang Heling's lover. Speaking of this Su Yuzhen, she and the Zhang Heling couple lived in the same area. She had been married several times, then completely let herself go. She frequently had relationships with multiple men simultaneously and changed boyfriends constantly. In 2004, Zhang Heling and Su Yuzhen's husband took on a project together. Afterwards, they often invited each other to play mahjong. During this time, Zhang Heling got to know the 26-year-old Su Yuzhen. Subsequently, these two quickly developed feelings for each other. They weren't shy about renting a place outside to live together and began their shameless affair. Until January 2005, Cai Tingyou discovered their illicit relationship. She had an argument with Su Yuzhen in the residential area. Afterwards, she even called Su Yuzhen's husband, asking him to control his wife and not let her continue to seduce her husband. Su Yuzhen initially just wanted to seek excitement and had no intention of divorcing. But when the illicit relationship was exposed, she had to divorce her husband. Therefore, she deeply resented Cai Tingyou. Although this case had many suspicious points, the initial investigation ended without results. Afterwards, Zhang Heling also broke up with her and went to mainland China. Su Yuzhen thought these matters no longer concerned her. However, who would have thought that 2 years later, the case would be reopened for investigation? The task force even intervened in Su Yuzhen's life, even summoning her. Faced with questions from the task force, Su Yuzhen asserted that she and Zhang Heling were not close and were just card-playing friends a few times. She even said that she had many men pursuing her, and Zhang Heling's conditions weren't very good, so she didn't pay much attention to him. Su Yuzhen appeared very calm, but in reality, she was terrified inside. Through wiretapping, the police learned that she kept calling Zhang Heling, but he always refused. This increased her anxiety even more. In addition, the task force discovered that Zhang Heling had called a close friend. After investigation, they found that a car and a SIM card registered under this friend's name were both used by Zhang Heling. The car was sold on the second day after the incident. The call history of the SIM card showed that at the time of the incident, Zhang Heling was still in constant contact with Su Yuzhen, and the location of the SIM card at that time was exactly at the Lincoln apartment complex where Cai Tingyou was living. All this information showed that Su Yuzhen was lying. Therefore, the task force informed Su Yuzhen that according to procedure, she needed to come to the Criminal Investigation Bureau for a lie detector test. It's hard to say whether Su Yuzhen was smart or foolish, but to pass this lie detector test, she even used her connections to ask the police how to invalidate the lie detector test. Not only that, to better cope with interrogation, she even went online to search for the uses of ethyl ether in daily life. But she didn't expect that these actions she thought were clever would become her biggest slip-ups, because everything she did was known to the task force. On the day of the lie detector test, Su Yuzhen thought she was well prepared, but she still couldn't avoid feeling apprehensive. She naively thought it would be best to run away. But Su Yuzhen was quickly caught and brought to the police station. Afterwards, the police found many intimate photos of her with Zhang Heling on her home computer. The browser history also had many records of searching for information related to immigration. Moreover, she had once bought ethyl ether from an online friend in Kaohsiung and said it was used to clean her boyfriend's skin. All the evidence gathered by the task force had exposed all of Zhang Heling's lies. On the other hand, as the biggest suspect, the task force was also trying to figure out how to lure Zhang Heling back to Taiwan. Coincidentally, it had been nearly 2 years since Zhang Heling filed the insurance claim. Therefore, the task force pretended to be insurance company employees and called him, asking him to quickly return to complete the procedures before the insurance contract expired. At this time, Zhang Heling's older brother knew that the case had been reopened for investigation, so he angrily called the police to question why this case was still not closed. The task force took advantage of this opportunity and told Zhang Heling's brother, "As long as your brother passes the lie detector test, we will immediately close the case." Therefore, the older brother, trusting his younger brother, urged Zhang Heling to return to Taiwan for the lie detector test. After receiving the call, Zhang Heling finally breathed a sigh of relief. This case had not been solved for 2 years, and it seemed that the police had not found any clues or evidence. Moreover, he could receive a large insurance payout. It was too good to be true. Therefore, he finally flew back to Taiwan, falling into the big trap that the task force had prepared for him. As soon as the plane landed, Zhang Heling was immediately arrested and taken to the police station for interrogation. But at this time, he still maintained a tough attitude, claiming that he was also a victim because he had lost his 2 daughters and denied all suspicions raised by the police. Seeing that the suspect was quite stubborn, the task force turned their attention to Su Yuzhen. They put strong pressure on her. First, they exposed her lies to shake her and reminded her that doing so would result in charges of perjury. Then, they presented the search results, asking why she had searched for information related to ethyl ether. Finally, they added the final piece of evidence that the time and location of her calls with Zhang Heling completely matched the time and location of the incident. With such clear evidence, Su Yuzhen could no longer pretend. She requested to apply the Witness Protection Act to reduce her sentence, allowing her to become a guilty witness. To obtain her testimony and catch all the criminals, the task force agreed to her request. In her testimony, Su Yuzhen tried her best to shift responsibility away from herself. She told the task force that all of this was planned and executed by Zhang Heling. She even said that she had advised him over the phone not to act impulsively. The police had obtained Su Yuzhen's testimony and only lacked Zhang Heling's confession. Team leader Li Yangji gave Zhang Heling the transcript of Su Yuzhen's testimony and played the Great Compassion mantra in the interrogation room. Then, he took out photos of the 2 children, placed them in front of Zhang Heling, and said emotionally, "Let's pause the interrogation now. Whether you did it or not, let's close our eyes and pray for the 3 deceased." This approach completely broke Zhang Heling down. He burst into tears. Seeing this, Li Yangji immediately shouted, "Are you a human, a ghost, or a beast?" Zhang Heling, hitting his own head while crying, said, "I am a beast controlled by an evil spirit." Afterwards, he confessed to all his crimes. The actions of this immoral couple were said to make even experienced police officers shudder. Under police escort, Zhang Heling returned to the crime scene to reenact the entire process of the crime. It turned out that to take revenge on Cai Tingyou, Su Yuzhen and Zhang Heling frequently displayed their affection openly. In 2006, Cai Tingyou had proposed divorce, but because they couldn't agree on alimony issues, the divorce case was still ongoing. But even so, Su Yuzhen was still not satisfied. She constantly incited Zhang Heling to kill his wife and declared, "If you're a real man, kill her or don't stay with me anymore." Based on their economic situation at the time, it's highly likely that she instigated Zhang Heling to purchase accident insurance. Zhang Heling had lacked proper guidance since childhood, with a personality lacking in self-direction and easily influenced by others. Married life quickly became boring for him. Since his affair with Su Yuzhen, this different, exciting life intrigued him. But he was also tightly controlled by Su Yuzhen and followed all her decisions. However, Su Yuzhen didn't care about his feelings at all, even meeting other men privately in the apartment they rented. Under this woman's urging, the two began preparing for the murder. First, they went to Kaohsiung to buy ethyl ether from an online friend and took a trip while at it. Then, they went to a pet store to buy a white mouse to test the effects of ethyl ether. Finally, they went to a mountaineering equipment store to buy rope and other tools. But when it came time to carry out the plan, Zhang Heling hesitated. He found all sorts of reasons to delay, proposing to wait until the children were on summer vacation and send them to their grandparents' house before acting, etc. But Su Yuzhen couldn't wait that long. She threatened to break up if Zhang Heling didn't act quickly. So, in the early morning of April 11, 2006, Zhang Heling brought the murder weapons and took advantage of the building manager's absence to sneak up. He climbed down from the top floor to his wife's bedroom and called Su Yuzhen to directly report the scene, showing his determination and love. He used a cloth soaked in ethyl ether to tightly cover his wife's mouth and nose. After a brief struggle, Cai Tingyou passed out. Only when he was sure his wife was dead did Zhang Heling remove the cloth. At this point, Su Yuzhen on the other end of the line praised him for doing a good job. Initially, Zhang Heling had no intention of killing his two daughters. But when he returned to the living room, his older daughter had woken up to use the bathroom. The girl surprisingly asked, "Dad, what are you doing?" Fearing discovery, Zhang Heling coaxed his daughter back to bed, then said, "Daddy is sorry." Afterwards, he used the same method to take the lives of his two daughters. Only at this point did Su Yuzhen on the other end ask why he had acted against the children. But Zhang Heling replied, "If I don't kill them, who will take care of them?" After killing all three, Zhang Heling followed the initial plan to stage the scene as a suicide. He covered all three with blankets, then used a toilet brush to clean Cai Tingyou's fingernails, where there might have been traces left when she struggled and scratched him. After cleaning everything up, it was around 4 a.m. He climbed back up to the top floor the same way and called Su Yuzhen to report that he had completed the mission. Afterwards, Zhang Heling threw the murder weapons into the trash and burned them. What's even more infuriating is that right after killing his wife and children, he rushed back to the rented apartment to spend the night with Su Yuzhen. However, ironically, this man who sacrificed everything for true love made Su Yuzhen feel bored after just half a year. She not only brought other men home, but also demanded that Zhang Heling not enter the house without permission, only allowed to return when she called. Because he was discarded and to evade police investigation, Zhang Heling fled to mainland China to make a living. In March 2009, Zhang Heling was sentenced to death twice for killing his daughters and given a life sentence for killing his wife. Combining all charges, he was finally sentenced to death with limited possibility of commutation. His accomplice, Su Yuzhen, was also sentenced to 15 years in prison. After the appeal trial, Zhang Heling's sentence remained unchanged, while Su Yuzhen, as a guilty witness, had her sentence reduced to 10 years and began serving her term. But unexpectedly, by 2016, Zhang Heling still hadn't been executed. He wrote in prison that he only wished to die. But after 6 trials, the Supreme Court again overturned the death sentence and changed it to life imprisonment. The reason was that the judge believed, after committing such a serious crime, when watching TV in prison and seeing images of children, he showed signs of avoidance and psychological weakness, indicating clear signs of remorse. Additionally, the main reason he acted so cruelly was largely due to Su Yuzhen's instigation. Therefore, the judge concluded that Zhang Heling's conscience wasn't completely lost, and he still had the potential to reintegrate into society. This result can be said to have angered many people. How can 3 lives be forgiven? If one has committed an unforgivable crime, what is there to talk about rehabilitation? As Li Yangji said in a later interview, "The law stipulates the death penalty. If judges don't want to impose the death penalty, please resign. Don't continue working, because you have betrayed this responsibility." In this case, if Zhang Heling was the knife, then Su Yuzhen was the hand wielding the knife. She controlled the entire course of events, being the most terrifying person in the whole case. But now, this evil woman has served her sentence and been released, causing great indignation. Although the perpetrators in this case were ultimately not executed, when night falls, can they really sleep soundly? And that's the case for today. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share in the comment section below the video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.